All right, LJ. So let's first of all, how do you say your last name?
It's Yeahquo.
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 Okay. So let's get a little background on you. I haven't seen you guys rope a ton, other than the first time I remember watching you rope was at San Angelo a year or two ago, where you guys were three on the first one, I believe.
Second one, yeah, I let him jump out of the first one.
Okay, second one. I was like, that was the first time I like really like watched you guys make a run at a big rodeo, and I was like, okay, that was pretty dang pretty dang good right there. So, just give me a little bit of background. Where are you from?
So all of my family, we're originally from North Dakota on the reservation, MHA Nation in Fort Berthold. My parents obviously grew up on the reservation, and my dad had got a union job, an opportunity to come down here to Oklahoma to work on the GM plant in Oklahoma City. And so he had come down, and my mom and all of us, we stayed up there. Actually, JC and I weren't even born yet. So we had stayed up there. And then my dad just loved it down here and said, "Well, we gotta come down here." And by that time, I was a year old, and Jeremiah was just very very wet behind the ears. And my parents got together at a really really young age, so obviously the kind of hardship that comes with being together, high school sweethearts or whatever. So Oklahoma has just been a land of opportunity for us, and we have loved it.
Okay, so where at in Oklahoma do you guys living at?
We live 45 minutes north of Oklahoma City in a town called Crescent.
Okay,
It's a pretty centralized location.
right. And so most of the times there now, like not much to do with the Dakotas. Like you're calling Oklahoma home.
Yep, I'd call Oklahoma home. We recently put our hometown for the PRCA, when it's on TV back home in North Dakota, just kind of for my family and stuff like that.
Right. Okay. Well, what about the rope, and when does this become a thing for you guys? You start to kind of go down that path. What kind of inspires that?
Well, my dad, we come from a big rodeo family. We have a couple uncles, great uncles that are in the Cowboy Hall of Fame in Oklahoma City, and they were rough stock riders. And my dad had always had the dream of having, a rodeo family and kids that would make it to the NFR and whatnot. And that's where our names come from. That's why we go by our initials, because he wanted that to be, our rodeo names.
Okay.
And really, it's been in our minds for ever since we could swing a rope, and we've been swinging a rope ever since we 3 or 4 years old, and just have loved it.
Right. Okay. So how old are you now?
I'm 23.
23, and then I got 21 as your rookie year in the PRCA, right?
21, yes, sir.
Okay. So 21, 22, kind of getting your feet wet at
Yeah.
rodeos. What is that experience like?
Man, like when people would ask me, because a lot of people have asked me if this year's our rookie year, and no, it's not. Like you said, 21 was, and I really wish that we'd have waited a little bit longer. In 21, we didn't. We just kind of stayed around in circuit rodeo. We didn't go to hardly any at all, and we really just kind of jumped into the PRCA with blindfolded, if you will, and didn't have any help. Like my dad. My dad rode bareback horses when he was younger, but he never really did take it, to the next level. So we had no idea, and I mean, there's a lot to go with being in the rodeo scene, and we really went last year. We went until August. We came home before the Northwest and circuit rodeoed. We buddied with a Johnson, so that was a really cool deal. His dad is obviously Jet Johnson, and they're pretty tight with Driggers, and so it was, as far as getting around at the rodeos and stuff. It was a really neat deal for us. We definitely learned a lot.
Right. All right. So that we'll call last year like the first year, like getting outside of the
Right.
circuit. What's the hardest part that you didn't really foresee happening? What was kind of the biggest challenge of that year that you really were not prepared for?
So I rode one horse all year long last year, and it's my good mare. I call her Rita, and I had figured that she'd be good everywhere. Just because I've ridden her since she was 3 years old. I mean, she's been my number one horse since then. And we went to Salinas, like Sheridan, like some of the longer square rodeos. Wasn't really her cup of tea. Just because she would get a little bit strong, and so that would be probably my biggest, wish I would have known a little bit better then. But, going to all those rodeos and being able to know what it's like is gonna be a big help this year.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest part about rodeoing, right? Is getting experience, but also managing the wins and the losses and the
Absolutely,
swings of it, right?
absolutely.
So with that, you guys start going the first year. I mean, it was a good year, but it wasn't
This
obvious
year?
last year. So
Last
so
year,
I'm
yeah.
calling like 22, kind of
Okay,
that like
gotcha.
that the first year like really rodeo, and I just say like, um, what about the mental side of that year with how the wins and losses? What did that kind of feel like, or you know? Because we're right now we're almost to June. We're kind of you're getting ready to really go out there and start rodeoing. So like the mental side of it from handling the ups and downs, what did you take from 22 to now like that's in play this year to understand that?
So my brother and I have, definitely grown up a whole bunch, like, mentally and, professionally. Last year, he would miss or I would miss, and we were so hard on each other and obviously didn't bring each other up like professionals would, and so I feel like that was a big, big downfall. We weren't there building each other up, and, when we went, like I said, we buddied with the Johnsons, and those guys would miss or whatever, and it was like, "Oh, man, it's fine, just we'll go get the next one." I'm like, "Wow."
Yeah.
We need to be like that, and since then, man, it's been a big game changer, a big, big game changer for us, and excited for, what's to come.
So being brothers, how hard is that to because you've got the opportunity to communicate on a different level, right? You kind of get to be a little bit harder on each other or a little more truthful, right? Is that
Absolutely, and
is
that's why I think it was so easy to, to bring each other down, because we are, so close and whatnot, and, I mean, it's honestly it's toxic to be like that, and especially when we're both showing up, we're both putting in the work, we don't wanna miss, but it's inevitable, things are gonna happen, and you just gotta roll with the punches and go and get the next one.
yeah, kind of trust that process and
Yeah.
know that you guys are both working at it. And then the other thing too, if you're working at it, let's kind of talk about that. Do you feel like do you guys kind of go about it the same way and look at it the same way from like a work ethic perspective and a practice, how you guys want to build on that?
Elaborate on that a little bit more, if you
So
will.
like for example, this is where I'm kind of going with this. There's some guys that like to run a lot and like to practice all the time. And there's other guys that they're like, "Hey, I like to run about 25 head. That's kind of my number." And and are you guys similar like on how you like to practice and set up your schedules or
Absolutely, like, we're 2 peas in a pod, like, we do everything together, and, like, the amount of practice that we get in kinda depends on the horses that we have at the time. My brother and I, we train horses, we always have horses around, so depending on what, we have there is really I mean, we try to get the maximum of our day out of practice.
okay. Yeah, so you guys are always like that you're in the arena working on it. It's training horses,
Yeah,
working on yourself. Like you guys can kind of get that structured out, right?
absolutely, yeah.
And how has that gotten better, through the last year or 2? Like as you guys progress with your roping and getting better with your roping and riding, how has that changed from a few years ago?
Man, it's changed a whole bunch. I felt like we've always had structured practices just because we have the opinion of, like not just going to the arena to, just rope to pass time because I mean, really it is a job and like we train horses for a job. And so like I feel if you go with no intent, then you don't get anything out and it's just wasted time. So we'd always practice with intent and I feel like we've just, progressed with our intentions and stuff and how we go about the different runs that we make and I had in August of last year I really switched up how I ride around the corner and how I like break out of the box and stuff and I feel like it's been a huge game changer for us as a team.
Right. What about that as far as like making changes and adjustments? Because that's the one thing is you're young, so you're gonna constantly want to work at it, right?
Right.
So how do you try to find the line of all right, this is what I've got, and I like to go with this as far as competition wise, and then be able to step back and like all right, maybe this is another piece that I need to add to my game. So how do you try to find that line, but keep the confidence there?
So I didn't like I knew that I had needed to change a little bit up, change something up last year during the rodeos and stuff because I was kind of, closing myself in and not necessarily riding all the way around the corner. I wasn't disciplined enough to, make the same shot or ride around the same position. So my brother, he'd always send me TikToks of, the Paul Leaves or Buddy Hawkins,
Right.
the number one guys, and he was like, "Yeah, you need to do this, you need to do that." I was like, "I'm trying." But
Yeah.
anyways, I got a new horse last year in August, and he'd really, really upped my game and gave me more confidence. in the area of riding the same position every time, or riding to their head and then just sucking to the inside, and so that has been a big help.
I got you. And then you said the word discipline, and I think this is something that's tough as a healer, right? Like, I think that's one of the qualities that a lot of great healers have. So when you look at like your healing and how you try to improve on it, how do you look at the discipline side of things and try to recreate that throughout your runs and especially rodeo? Because you guys mainly rodeo, right? Like
Right.
that. I mean,
Yeah.
you jackpot, but being from Oklahoma, I guess I don't see around here like the open
Right.
pots is a ton, but it's you guys are rodeoing a lot, right?
Yes, sir.
So the discipline rodeoing. Let's first of all let's talk about your guys' run. Like, what is the rodeo run that you guys like to make? And obviously, you put a lot of fast times on the board. So how does that kind of show through there?
So we've been practicing that run since we could be horseback. My brother never did have very fast horses, so he was always, when he was younger, he would just throw it up in the air and it would float. And then you don't think you're gonna get there, and then bam, it just snaps right on the horns.
Yeah,
And so we've been practicing that run for a long time, and to see it actually starting to come together and to be fairly consistent at it, it's been really, really awesome.
right. It's an aggressive run, right? Like
Yes.
it's one of those runs that you guys are gonna win lots of big
Yep,
checks with,
like, if
right?
we catch in that run, like, we're gonna win, or we're gonna, be right there. Like, they're gonna have to come get us, if we make that run.
Yep. And what sets that in stone? Like, hey, that's our run. Is it like both your mentality, or is it because I guess like my question for this is like I love it when a guy gets around and the team gets around. I think that's very important to be successful. But there's a few different types, right? Like there's guys that are like a little bit more conservative heading, that they're using their horse a little bit
Right.
more, and they're going to catch more cattle just because it's a little bit easier run, but they're not going to win those big checks as
Right.
much. Where you got guys that are heading going to take more risk, and so the swings are going to be a little bit more up and down, right?
Mhm.
Like you might miss a few more, but then when you connect, it kind of makes up for it,
Yeah,
right?
like high risk, high reward, and we obviously know that, like, we were at Vernon the other night, and, the steers were coming pretty hard left. I don't know, surely you've been to Vernon. It's kind of a narrow arena, and we were 4th out on a fresher set. These guys were getting out, and they're shoving them left. I'm like, "We've got a game plan." Like, "Well, I'm just gonna score the cow with you and come with you," and that steer kinda, like, just my brother obviously threw a long ways at him, but his rope came out of his hand, and, like, he just ducks right. But if I'd been up there and kept the steer better in the left lead, like, it would've connected, and, like, just kinda, like, making game plans like that. I mean, obviously, it's like I said, it's inevitable you're gonna miss, like, a decent amount. Um, so right there, like, on his run, like, to get back to it, I kinda chased a rabbit right there, but,
No, you're
um, that is our run. That's why you don't see us, at the jackpots. All the jackpots, we'll come down, there's a big one or whatever, but we don't necessarily just go out of our way to go to a jackpot because we, don't jackpot the best. So which we're trying to get better, and, if we have to be 7 at a rodeo to win, then we'll probably be 5, or,
right.
or miss. That's just kinda how it is right now, but we look to improve that, because you do have to catch. Sometimes go to Dodge City, Kansas, it usually falls apart right there, and you've gotta be 8 to win it, and, if you can't catch an 8, then, I mean, it's a tough deal. You have to be a catcher.
Yeah. Kinda gotta know how to win too, right?
You've
Yeah.
gotta know how to win.
So, from your perspective, when you've got a header that's going fast, there's a couple things that are gonna be pretty tough, right? And I don't think a lot of people talk about this, but the actual, like, hazing and you setting up your position is very difficult, right? Like,
It
that
can be, yes.
and I think that it's difficult because you get situations where you might not see the header or head rope,
Yeah.
and the steer's gonna
That's
be
usually what it's like.
yeah, and so you're kind of out there, and you've got this steer in a lane, and it just happens fast,
Mhm.
right? Is that kind of how that feels? And was that kinda like one of, like, the discipline things and, like, setting up the turn that, to kinda get back to that original question, is that something, like, mentally that's challenging? Or how do you try to slow that down so you can be consistent right there?
So that, being disciplined in that area, in that spot that you just talked about, it's not really too bad, just because I know exactly where the steer is gonna go,
Right.
And I know exactly, if my brother fumbles his wrap, like, I know exactly his movements after that, so I know where to push. But I'm talking about as these I used to not ride as far up, so I would be behind, and would, maybe get him on the 3rd hop or 2nd hop, which is fine, but, at a fast setup when you've gotta be, 4 nothing, you've gotta be definitely be in that spot if you wanna win.
Right. What about like from the mental side of things? What do you think's the most important mental skill to have for professional team roper, especially rodeoing?
So for me is I like to, um, for obviously forget about the losses, but I like to forget about the wins as well. Whenever we do good, like I often really don't get excited. We cashed in pretty good at San Angelo, and my sister called me and was like, "Oh my gosh, how's it feel?" And the next day, like, you got to be on a high, like just another day. Like I just try to forget about it so much, and that so it doesn't bother me or affect my my the levelness of my head.
Does that go to like, do you have goals or kind of a like what creates that? Where does that come from? Because it's unique. It's really easy to let the highs get high, and
Right,
it, especially like understand like not letting the lows get low. Like right,
right,
everyone kind of says that, and I think that's a big challenge in itself, like losing and how to stay like believing in yourself.
right.
But when you win and you don't go too far up, and you just kind of want to stay in that, is that like a process you've decided, or what? Where does that
Absolutely.
come
So
from?
we've had very, very humble beginnings, and, when we would go when we were younger to the junior rodeos, we would see, the guys, like, in the cool rigs and whatnot, and we didn't have much. But, my parents did great for us, but I would see everybody, they would do good, and they would just kinda put their nose up to us because we didn't have the best horses or, the best gear, and, I was like, "Man, I will never be like that." So it's kinda like I'm trying to be the guy that I wanted to see, or that I needed when I was younger. So that's where it kinda comes into play for me.
I get you. Does it make you chippy like that?
Chippy.
Like have a chip on your shoulder? I don't know. Chippy's probably not a
But
word, but you know what I mean. Like
Right,
when you see that, I mean, you see people that are well off, right?
right.
And they kind of make you feel a certain way, like they are better or whatever.
Absolutely, yeah.
I don't know exactly the feeling, but does that add that like motivation, or is that something that kind of just like what does that like add fuel to the fire?
In a sense, absolutely. Just because, like, the guys, that I would have always ask to rope with, not being good, and they'd always say, "No, I'm full," and at this time, we weren't good at all, like, which I don't blame them for not roping with me. But, just how they went about it was not in a very professional manner, and so I'd never forget, how those people made me feel,
Yeah,
and it's, now that we've, progressed in roping, those same guys kinda come up and, "You want rope?" It's like, "Man, no, I got them all," like, "Thank you, though, I appreciate it," and
yeah,
which I don't show nothing, I just, keep it professional.
I got you. I'm not like that. I there are times where I'm like, I do remember some, especially being young, like high school
Right.
age, and I guess it's just more like I want to feel like I belonged, right?
Exactly, yeah, who doesn't?
And it would really rub me the wrong way,
Yeah,
and I'd get pretty bad about
yeah,
that. But I think it can be used in a really positive way, right? Like
for sure.
understanding like, hey, this is where I'm going, but also trying to remember like where you come from, and
Yeah,
and I think that's, the one thing about rodeoing that's really it's tough, right, is managing the finances. It's a very expensive sport. The swings financially can go really high to really
yeah,
low.
yeah.
And, as you're building that, is that something you try to put a game plan together for, or how do you try to look at that aspect of it? Because being young guys that are gonna go fast, gonna have bigger swings. Like, is that something mentally that wears on you? Or has it just been something like you're okay with it, or do you try to put like a financial plan together to handle the ups and the downs of it?
So, my brother and I do have some contingency plans, in place, so, if when we do get real low, we can, fall back on those, and that is a really big, extra leg, if you will.
Yeah,
And so, as far as that goes, like that is our run. So we hope that we can, obviously keep keep it going.
Well,
And
stay true to it, right?
yeah,
You can stay true to the run. So I think this is really important for someone that is trying to understand like, hey, how we gonna handle the ups and downs a little bit, especially if you don't have a lot of money,
yeah,
is having a backup plan with what to do with the finances is really important because we're more than likely a lot of us will go broke at some
yeah,
point, right?
absolutely.
So if you can know like, hey, we're gonna learn from the run or maybe how to get better, but if we can stay pretty true to it and if it is good enough, it will work, right?
Yeah, and then like last year, like I said, we don't jackpot much, and there's some of them rodeos where you it's almost a jackpot run in a
Yeah.
sense, just a real sharp jackpot run. And my brother got to changing up his game a little bit last year. Rodeoing with the Johnsons. Kellen rides his horse really, really well. I mean, we'll blow the barrier out
Yep.
and be a coil away. And they were like 5-0, like, and we would practice at their house, and I'm like, wow, bro, like, how dude, that's so impressive. 'Cause my brother will throw from the box and we'll be five or whatever, and just changing that game plan up a little bit last year, hurt us. We went for a week or 10 days or something like that, didn't win any money because we were just trying to, we went in a slump trying to change something up, and which we should have just stayed true to our run that we've practiced since we were 13 years old. But I mean, it's a learning deal. I mean, you learn as you go.
Yeah, I think it's important to understand that because it will be there will be important times where it'll get cold.
Yeah.
And I was saying this to someone in the practice pen the other day. We were kind of making some aggressive type of runs, and we I think it was a buddy. Buddy and I had roped like 4 or 5 days in a row, made some decent runs, and then one day, like within like 6 runs, we didn't have a catch. Like I was just like I miss I miss most of them. I'm sure. What I mean? He doesn't really miss, but like we between that, I scored bad and just didn't make the run that you're supposed to make on that steer, and I was like this really could be 10 days of rodeoing right
Yeah,
here in one
absolutely.
practice
Yeah.
session, these bad 4, 5, 6 steers. So like I tried to put that in perspective, like, all right, well, if that's the case, how are we going to diagnose it? What are we going to do? And I think a lot of the times eh, I think we look at it like, okay, this is what's going wrong, and we try to change a lot, and that's when it gets worse.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, is that something as far as like how do you try to look at a miss or when you let yourself down, like you don't do your job? How do you look at that?
So obviously, I know I've got it in me to catch, and everybody does. If they didn't, they wouldn't go. And I feel like I just kind of well, I get about 5 minutes of down on myself, then I just really just forget about it. Obviously take a look at the video and see what I did wrong or what I should have done, and then I just let it go, man. You just got to get to the next one because I mean you can't take it back. I mean it already happened, and so um, I just try not to do that again.
Right. And then I think this is a great way because then the next steer, you're just more back to, hey, this is where I need to be.
Yeah,
This is the game plan for the
yeah,
steer. And it's just basically you're just back to trying to make your run, right?
yeah,
And then let's say something happens a few times throughout the summer or just kind of keeps popping up. Like, for example, like you guys seen the video, my head horse got a little flat and I think he's getting a touch quick.
right,
So like something like I'm like borderline, he's too quick or it's really good.
right,
And so I just kind of make notes throughout the times it's having it. And then if it happens too many times, it's like, all right, this is something I'm gonna go to the practice pen and start fixing, late at when I can, right?
right.
Or start addressing it at that point. And is that something that you try to do as well? Or how does that kind of feel for you? Is like when you do have something that might go wrong a few times, it's like real similar. How do you try to handle that especially from your experience last year rodeo, and you know what I mean, when there's not a lot of practicing, how do you try to make the adjustments or do you wait on those?
Oh, so what I do when I do miss a couple times in a row, being in the summer and not being able to practice anywhere, and you get your confidence way low, I'll go back and I'll just watch a whole bunch of videos of myself, roping really fast and shutting the run down really good, and I'm like, "Man, you got this. Like, this is just another steer. Like, you can heal these things." And so I go back and watch those videos, and it really helps my confidence when I bring myself down.
Yeah. And is that how important is confidence? And then what about that, like maintaining it, or you've already kind of said you don't let it get too high,
Right.
but as far as like advice to someone or how you would tell yourself, like, when it does start getting low, what are some ways you keep it consistent? Is it kinda going back to the videos, or is there anything else?
Being around good people, good people pick you up, and I believe in anything, business, golfing,
Yeah.
roping. I mean, you got to be around good people if you want to be, even halfway successful. So I think if you're not around people that will help you, bring you up when your confidence is low, I mean, I think you're in a bad spot, and you need to take a step back and look and switch some things up.
Well, I think this is something that is it happens a lot when you hang around winners. They're like I don't know that they make you a winner,
Right,
but when you're constantly talking about the winning, like a winning process or how to win and like looking at it from like a really good perspective, right?
right.
If you put the work in, I think it helps follow like the winning to follow that,
Oh, for
right?
sure. Yeah, you can't just be around those guys and just expect to win. Like you obviously got to be putting in the work
Yep.
and whatnot, and for those to reap those seeds.
Well, and so that's I think that's what kinda ties in. So, you've put the work in, and if you believe in it and you can kinda continue that, and then you're around the good guys, like, it kinda helps you feed
Yeah.
that, like, you don't really feel like you're losing, don't get down on it, and I think that kinda helps feed into it, and it to me, like, it's weird when you're winning, right? Like, it feels so easy. When you get kinda
Mhm.
on those hot streaks,
Yeah.
you look back and you're like, "Man, that was pretty it went pretty
Yeah.
good," right? And then the low streaks, they feel like they're gonna last forever.
Forever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're
absolutely.
and and I think if a lot of the stuff, like I said, if you're playing golf and it's fun and the days are fun and you're not sitting there dwelling on losses and you're just talking about like the things that are going right
Mhm.
and I think that around people that are doing the same, it feels like you're winning even though you might not be. And I think it helps speed that up, right? And that's also I think that's also where like the confidence comes in, the it just kind of those turn it back around
Yeah,
pretty
and then so,
fast.
like, kinda hit on that too. Obviously, missing, you're gonna miss, and so what helps me is, like, knowing that we're going to miss, and so a while back, I, kinda took a step back and just kinda looked at, what we're doing as a whole and realized, we're gonna miss, so, like, oh, well, there you can't do anything about it, um, and knowing that you just gotta go catch the next one, and that has really helped a whole bunch, and you can be optimistic or pessimistic, sorry, and no matter what, in anything, even when it's going good, like, you can still pick apart the bad things, and obviously, we will pick apart the bad things and what we need to do to get better, but I believe you do have to be optimistic. If you wanna be successful, like I miss or whatever, and I'll make a good comment about his horse or my horse or, what went right in the run. We don't necessarily just dwell on what went wrong, you have to give yourself credit, in order to keep your confidence up, in my opinion, like, well, I rode around the corner, I had good position, but I didn't set my pinky down. I got a inside leg, you just gotta, in my opinion, for myself, is doing things like that to not just, totally destroy my confidence when we're not doing well.
Right. And almost like realistic,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like very,
exactly.
very real with yourself. Like, hey, it's a little mistake, or hey, we're doing this right,
Right.
and this is what it is. And a lot of the times is little details are the difference between wins and losses at
Mhm.
times. But to address them and then just move on real fast, I think is a healthier way than to dwell on them while especially while you're competing.
Right, yeah,
Right.
because they can definitely hold you back, and, if you're still thinking about that last run and like, "Man, I didn't ride around the corner, got really good at riding around the corner good right here," and then you ride around the corner worse, you know what I'm saying? Like, you have to have a free mind, tunnel vision whenever you're going, you leave in a box, you can't be thinking about anything else.
Man, I think the mindset that you have is really unique just from this conversation because I don't know you at all. This is
Right.
literally the first time
Yeah.
we're ever talking. And how old you say you're again?
23.
23. Okay, so I just don't think a lot of kids under that age have been humbled a lot.
Right.
And I think the reason is that it's just the experience, right? Like we kind of think, at least from my like how I grew up, I thought I was good enough and I wasn't really open to like learning or getting better. Like I just kind of thought
Mhm.
you just kind of compete and you'll win and everything's
Right.
going to take care of itself. And a lot of the things that I'm hearing is that like it's there's a lot of humility, right? Where do you think that kinda comes from as far as being able to understand like, hey, I got to get better, but this is good. How do you think you have such a strong foundation of that or belief in that?
It's it's really weird how I think about, I don't know if this is definitely necessarily, like, hitting on it, but it might be, so just tell me if it is. Uh, since we were younger, like, obviously the junior rodeo ranks, like, what's next? The, junior high school, junior high. What's next after that? High school. We never made the high school finals in the junior high or the high school. And we, really were not good at all until we, turned 17, 18-ish is when we started, getting better. And so ever since then, it's like, what's next? What's next? When college, we get to college, we're going to our fourth CNFR here in June, including our COVID year. And it's kinda like, "What's next?" Now we're, like, doing good at these pro rodeos, and, we're winning against these guys, and I'm kinda in the mind frame of kinda like, "What's next?" But, like, there's really this is it, you know? And so, I don't know, I have a really, really hard time being content, and so, like, I'm always trying to better myself, like, even outside of the arena, I pursue things, so much, and, so, being content is, not my weak link, you know? So I'm just a chaser. I'm a pursuer, and so I'm gonna pursue the game, and, obviously until hopefully I'm a world champion, that's everybody's game plan.
Do you think losing is important? Like not, you just said like the didn't make the junior high finals and like really didn't peak very early throughout those basically the teenage
Right,
years. And so that time is a struggle, right? Those
right.
were probably pretty hard times on you,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. My dad, he's a hard coach.
Well, that's important too, right? Is
Yeah,
having people that are going to be hard on you that will they might break you down or tear you down a little bit, but
right.
it's with good
Yeah,
intentions. And losing, because now you've got to start asking yourself the question why,
yeah,
right? Like you've got to, why am I doing this? And then if you can continue to answer that question, right, and through these losses, and you still like doing it, you
mhm.
still pursue through it. It kind of builds that foundation. Is that kind of
No, yeah,
feel right?
absolutely, yeah. I think losing it I mean, winning is awesome, but losing is important, and how you handle yourself and, are you gonna wear your emotions on your sleeve? Are you gonna be professional? Are you gonna get down? There's just so many, variables in losing and how it can build you up or break you down, make you, break you, you know?
What's your advice on that? On losing? Like how to lose, like how to handle losing?
Um, Obviously, you wanna be professional, always. You never know who's watching or, who might ask you to endorse you. And if you are, not carrying yourself in a professional manner, then, if that person just happens to watch that, they're not gonna want their name on, some punk kid or some punk guy. And so I think if I could give any advice is to hold yourself in a professional manner, um, and to take the losses, go back to the trailer, sit in a trailer, take your 10 minutes, whatever, get down on yourself, but don't do it where anybody can see you. Because that's a big thing. Because I lose like, I'm a man's man, and I lose respect for people who don't carry themselves or wear their emotions on their sleeve and whatnot, and I just think it's not a professional way to, go about things.
I agree. The one thing that I've constantly kind of wondered about is just knowing yourself, right? Like there's some guys that they feel like they keep it bottled in and then they blow up.
Yeah.
And then there's times like I know for me, there's times where it snaps me off. Like I
Right.
am super pissed.
Right.
And I feel like you gotta have that time and you gotta let it out how
Yo,
you gotta
no,
let it out.
absolutely.
But it's pretty ugly when it happens, and it's
Yeah.
kind of embarrassing.
Yeah.
No, it is embarrassing, but I do feel better after I've done it, and so I've kind of went to the, like, "Alright, I'm just gonna go to my spot. No one's gonna
Yeah,
see it."
like, rightfully so, man, like, go to the trail, put a pillow over your head, just,
Yeah,
get after it.
get a couple F bombs
Yeah,
out.
whatever you gotta
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, I lose it pretty good, but and then I kinda thought about that as, I I did it at Caldwell this year. I got very upset. It was one of the first times in years that I've been that upset, and I noticed, like, going to the next spot, I was okay. You know what I
Right,
mean?
yeah,
And I wasn't hating it.
yeah,
And so I think it is important, but I think being a professional is the hardest thing. Like I don't know if I've said this a lot or if but my dad told me this a long time ago, and it's stuck with me forever. He says, "Winning's easy, anyone can win,
Mhm.
but being a good loser, like
Yeah.
being a good person after you lose, is really hard to do." And I've kind of looked at that, and I think that's you build a lot of character if you can handle those losses in the right way, and then make sure you're kind of looking at it from a good perspective. But
My brother, he used to wear his feelings on his sleeve a whole bunch, and I would miss or whatever, and like it would just roll off, and I would be fine. And obviously, like my outer being would be fine. You couldn't tell anything was wrong. And my dad, he'd be like, like, do you even want to rope anymore? Like what's the deal? Like you don't even bother. I was like, are you like I just don't wear my feelings on my sleeve. Like I'm so hard on myself, and like you got to be. And I mean, it's healthy to get mad at yourself or get down on yourself, um, to an extent, and so. I don't know, that's just been a thing of mine. I just graduated with a bachelor's in, business management from Oklahoma State, so I've always had, like, a business, professional mindset. My dad's a businessman, so I grew up around him and, him being professional, and so I've had a really, really good father figure as far as, walking tall and being a man, and you don't just show emotion, in front of everybody, and that's just outside of being professional. That's just something that, I haven't grown up doing. But there's been times, where obviously you step in a trailer and you're just like,
yeah.
I mean, you got to have those times.
Well, and I think losing can harden you up too, and it's just a valuable thing because it does add fuel to the practice.
Hmm.
Um it just kind of adds that extra to you. It just adds
Right.
extra to your character, that foundation of what your game usually is, and it really does. It helps. Like there's I have like a lot of the spins from like last summer. I thought I caught a lot of steers, but I don't remember them very well. The ones I remember are
The,
the handful of, like, bad misses that I
yep.
had, like, the ones I really want
Yep.
back. Those are the ones that kinda haunt me, and they still come through in the practice session, and I think it's important because that is how I think if you can look at that in a healthy manner and
Yeah.
address it, like, very real, like you said, I think it does make you into a better competitor,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely, and to know and like you said, I'm not a hitter and whatever, but to be able to, like, visualize it, like, in maybe mid-run, like, "Man, this is like that rodeo at wherever," and to be able to, "This is what I need to do," and I think that and same with healing, you come around and, like, "Man, that steer washed out or got down or whatever," like, "You need to do this," and just react, it's another thing is, like, a game plan. Um, we barely made the college finals this year. It was a tricky, tricky deal. My brother tied for 3rd place, and I was the 4th place healer, so with the tie, it dropped down to me. And at these college rodeos, we've had a game plan, just go catch them. Just go catch them. Like, they're so easy. They're
Yeah.
so simple. And if you're 14 on 2, then you're gonna win no worse than 3rd, or you win it. And we couldn't catch anything. We didn't catch a darn thing. And I think the biggest thing is having that game plan. And which that tore us down all year at the college rodeos. Like, we caught 5 cows, and what we caught, we won. If we make our run, we're gonna win. And we had a game plan, and we made another game plan, like, no game plans, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you can't have a game plan, like, team roping is all reaction. You have to ride around, I mean, see your shot, like, if it's the 1st hop or the 3rd hop, you can't make a game plan because, like, when I make game plans, I tend to mess up, or second guess myself. "Oh, I need to go one more." And a lot has changed, like, well, I talked about earlier about changing my writing up, and, really what a lot changed up too is that I don't have a game plan anymore. I'm just gonna ride around where I think I need to ride around and take my first shot and just react to whatever needs to be reacted to.
Well, getting away from thinking through the run, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly, because it
reacting
it
through the
happens
run.
too fast, you can't think in 4.2 seconds, or, 2 seconds, the time that the head rope gets on and you gotta heal them. Like, you just have to react right there.
And I think that's where a lot of people get in trouble rodeoing is they try to fix something and they are at the rodeos or they're jackpotting or whatever, and they're
Mhm.
trying to fix it while they're competing. And I think that's the worst thing you can do because it's that is something you got to build the skill first, and then it's just your mind should be shut off and kind of in the process, and then that's where it actually like comes through. Like the practice
Right.
shines through, right? If you're in
Yeah.
that reaction
Yeah.
mindset. If you're thinking, I feel like you're behind and
Yeah,
slow.
absolutely.
it like speeds the runs up and
Mhm.
it makes it pretty tough. Um, okay, so going from the the reaction mindset, right? Is that something uh when you get to pressure situations, right? So you guys have had a great winter,
Yes, sir.
but that means big steers. And this
Yeah.
is the one thing about the winter rodeos with these big steers. It's like San Angelo, for example. You guys were slack, right?
Yep.
So you ran 2 in slack, and then it's 2 weeks later, dang
Yeah.
near, that you come back for the
Yeah.
short round. So you've got a good chance over there, and you've got 2 weeks to think about this run
Yeah.
and kinda be ready. So it's an awkward feeling, right? Like, it's not like a normal jackpot or even some rodeos where, like, you run a few, then you might go to a rodeo or 2 and then come back for the short round.
Right.
You've got some time to think about it. Like, you've got Rodeo Austin. You got a few of these deals we've had big hits. Has there been any pressure situations that have really jumped out to you, like, "Alright, this is how I'm gonna handle them," or this is where you had to, like, really kinda dial it in, or how do you manage your mind going into these bigger pressure situations?
So we went to, like you said, we had 2 weeks in between, slack and the short round at San Angelo, and we went to San Angelo the first time, like, not nervous, like, just another steer, we went 3-9 and 4-5 right there in the slack. We got both of them same day. Came home, yeah, like, I'd figured we'd be no worse than third callback, just because the steers were really good over there, and on the way back to the short round, man, I was nervous driving over there, like,
Yeah.
man,
Got
like,
butterflies
we're
the
high
whole
call
yeah,
yeah,
butterflies the
the
whole
whole
time.
time,
Yeah.
that's a 6-hour drive from my house, and we get over there and, like, it's just fast, but before it started, I told Jim, I was like, our catching game isn't just, on point like it needs to be, and, we talk as a team and, like, "Hey, bro, like, no matter, like, what happens right here, like, don't let off," like, we have a rundown, like, that is a good setup for our run right there. And first team out goes like 4-5, 4-6, I mean, it's getting tough,
Yeah.
and, I told him that, and before team run started, I rode around and I was getting ready, and, um, Chad Masters and, Trey Yates, they went 4-1. I'm thinking, "Man, that's pretty dang tough right there," and then there was a 4-4, like the Green brothers, that they were second high call back, I think they went 4-5. And then they call us. We walk in the boxes, they have to be like 4-7 or something like that, and, like, well, we were 3-9 and 4-5, and, like, man, I don't know what's gonna happen right here, and the steer that we had drawn, I was not excited about. Hagen, Chad and Trey had him the first round, and he was terrible. He went hard right. I mean, Chad threw his whole rope, and Trey did some grown man healing right there and, like, just made a shot happen. Like, that steer didn't give him anything. And then Hagen and, had him in the second time on him, and the steer come hard left and followed really bad. And so he made 2 different trips right there, and I didn't know what was about to happen right here. I was not excited. I didn't have a real high confidence in myself because I didn't know, like I said, the steer made 2 different trips, and that's where you just have to react, get back to what we had said, you can't really have a game plan. Um
Can I jump in right here? Because
yeah,
I think
absolutely.
is it do you think it's really important to not give yourself a way out on and losing right there when you've drawn a steer that's bad? Like, honestly, that's the worst case scenario going into a short round is there's the team that's probably not high call because they've had a terrible steer and they
Right,
bring them into the short round.
right.
And then everyone else has got good ones and you're like, "All right, we probably don't have a chance on this steer." Do you think it's like what does that perspective look like so you don't give yourself a reason to lose before you even compete on him?
I in the game of team roping, it's so fast now. So you got your head horse, your horse, and you have your cow. Like, all 3 of them have to be in a line, if you will. You have to have a good steer if you're going to win because it's so fast. And there'll be times where you get by, and you will do good on those steers, but there's going to be times where the steers are just going to take you out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, you could do your job. And, if your steer's not just helping you out, then it's hard to win on stuff that's not helping you. I mean, that you wrote for a living, just as well as anybody.
Yeah, well, I guess what I'm trying to go to, like, in this is I've seen it. You can see it on guys' faces.
Right.
They've lost
Gotcha. Yeah.
before they run that steer. Like, they've lost on him.
Yeah.
So how do you not lose on this steer? You know what I mean? What
Yeah,
do you
so
gotta tell
when I
yourself
get
so you're like you're not giving yourself an excuse to lose? Like, you're trying to give yourself reasons to win, right? Is it I mean, that's probably what you gotta
no,
do.
yeah, absolutely. That thought comes to mind quite a bit. There's a 4-1, like, it's tough, like, the
Yeah.
go around's tough right here.
I would say this is worst case scenario to be high callback once you're riding in the box, right? Like,
Yeah,
everyone is maxing them out,
yeah.
and then in your mind, you probably have the worst steer in the short round.
Yeah, honestly, like, I'd went back and I'd looked at who had who and like, man, this is gonna be not in our favor. And so, like, watching these runs from the top 12 back, uh, man, this is gonna be tough. Like, God, 4 seconds. I don't know if there's a run over 5 seconds. It was tough. And walking there, I'm like, butterflies, like, oh my goodness, like, we gotta do something right here. We gotta do something right here. And I was getting in my own head, and I just start when I get like that, I just say, like, I'm a champion, like, I'm a bad son buck, like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna catch a steer. So I just trying to counter that with, with good thoughts and obviously um, having a good mind, a strong mind, and just take the bull by the horns, and, get him out of there and say, I'm a champion, I'm about to heal this steer, about to rip the gears out of him.
Right. So what happens? Like, take me through the run from the time you, like, go to turn around in the box.
So right here, obviously you get butterflies and thinking, taking deep breaths. And as soon as the gates bang, man, it's just like so slow.
Yeah.
And I don't hear anything. You get your blood pumping and it's over. You kind of heal that steer and I look up 3-9 and I'm like, whoa,
Yeah.
wow. That just happened. Okay, my brother headed that steer so fast, and then like he followed around, and I'm like, man, these flaggers have been flagging people out all winter long, and
Yeah.
I'm thinking he didn't really get a very good read right here, and luckily I was in the right position at the right time, and I was was able to get him, and crowd went wild, man. It was so awesome, and my younger brother Jeremiah, I've never seen him celebrate. He's a very closed book when it comes to emotion. And I seen him like he let his rep go and he looked at me and he's just said,
He's
"Wow."
fist
Oh
pumping.
my goodness. That's the first time I'd ever seen him celebrate. And we've had some pretty good runs this winter and the crowd have went wild and he, it's been composed, just trot down the back. But no, he let his rope go and he went, wow.
Yeah. I think that's so unique too, because it's like I feel like when you like the adrenaline really hits hard, it slows it down.
Mhm.
And the worst side of that is when it's really fast.
Yeah.
And I think that's when you let your mind overthink and you're running too many scenarios through and you're just trying to control the situation as opposed to like being in the situation, right?
Right.
And then when you have that and then make that run, that's gotta I mean, it's one of those things, it's a huge building block for the team, right?
Oh, for
You
sure.
know what I mean? Like, it just you guys are in the middle of the fire, and
Yeah.
to do good there, that's
Yeah,
a
that
huge
was
thing,
that
right?
was awesome, and kinda, hit on what you said about it being so fast. That was kinda my problem last year is I didn't ride the best position, I was a little bit too far behind, and, like, everything was so fast, coming from behind and try to making something happen, that happens really, really fast and not in the real life and then in your head, you can't slow things down. So me changing my position and everything has just slowed down so much more because you're already there and you're just waiting, and makes it much easier.
Would that be something you'd really recommend to guys that are, like, wanting to perfect rodeo healing or just even wanna get better at their healing? If they wanna slow the run down, would you say that typically comes through position? Like, once you have the skill, like, you've got timing and, like, you can catch feet,
Right.
like, would you say position is what slows the run down? Like
Absolutely. I think position makes the run, in my opinion. Obviously, if you got the skill down, you have to help yourself with the position because if you see the feet, you're going to heal 'em, I mean, if you practice and if you're rodeoing, I mean, most, 8, 9 times out of 10, you're going to have a good shot. And so if you can set yourself up, like, why wouldn't you? Horse willing, if your horse can help you out right there.
yeah.
I couldn't ride like that before because I felt like my horse would run past the cow, which she wouldn't. It was just, not having the confidence in it because I had never rode like that. I've always just kind of, got my haze on the cow and kinda backed up and followed around the turn, but now, like, I'm getting my haze and I'm holding, and it's just bam, and it's happening so fast, but so slow, and being able to shut the run down and getting better looks at the cows than I ever have, and so I would definitely say to, ride better position to give yourself a better shot, make your averages go up.
Right. So one of the questions I ask a lot, and it seems to just the answers are really unique. What's been the biggest loss or like the hardest time roping that at the time it sucked, but ended up being a big positive thing? Like you got a lot of good out of that loss.
So maybe like this winter, honestly. Um, we started out at Lubbock, in which, like last so a little bit to go back in time. Last August, we had went through a pretty rough dry spell. Like we didn't go to the Northwest. We came home. We circuit rodeoed and didn't win. I mean, I think we came in second to our circuit finals. Like we did okay at the beginning of the year in our circuit. And my brother, he kind of went through a little rough spell where he was not catching. And at this time, he's like, "Sorry, bro. Like whatever. Like you're a rank header. Like you're a top 15 header. Like I tell him, like you're not many people can do what you can do."
Right.
And so just building him up, and we were going through quite a few rodeos. Felt like forever. Like we'd said earlier, and it started clicking, and then it went dry again, and we went to Denver for the qualifier. I think we won second in the round, and then like I was just trying to get with my new horse, and I missed the second one or whatever, and so it's kind of slow there. So that's the San Antonio qualifier in Uvalde. We got outran on the first one, like it was crazy, dude.
Yeah.
Like my brother didn't even get a throw off. Those cows, which they just got home from Vegas or whatever, and so they left so sharp. They were so fast. They were full. They were slick. I mean, anyways, in the second round we went 4-2, 1 second, and then we go to Denver, and then we're 5-1 and 3-9. Got two barriers, and thinking, man, like we got to do something right here. We're gonna have to rodeo our butts off this year. And we go to Fort Worth. We catch our first one. We win $400 something on our first one. Then our second one, no good. And then like, man, like
I mean,
we
this is a
needed that.
month and a half of rodeoing at this point,
Yeah.
right? Like, I mean, this is
Like I mean, we
it's
didn't get
starting
it.
to feel like a bad winter.
Yeah, I'm telling you, we didn't get into Houston. We didn't get into San Antonio. Like, man, we just missed big opportunities right here. We're gonna have to, this is not the spot that we wanted to be in. And we go to Jackson. Jackson was 4-1 was winning it. Manny and his guy.
Mhm.
And then we go there. We go 3-9. And like that was our first time being three, my first time being three at a rodeo. And so like, man, that was cool. But it was like after I left, man, like I said earlier, kind of like just forgot about it. Like, you would think you'd be like, yeah, 3-9. It's like whatever. And we go, I'm trying to think where we went after Jackson. We went to Rapid City. And I don't like Rapid City. I feel so behind up there. Anyways, the steers were big from last year. Last year they were big,
Yeah.
and they're strong. They hopped really strong, and we went 4-6 right there in slack. And I didn't think we were gonna win it, because there's a lot of good guys up there. But we ended up winning Jackson or Rapid City, and like so these are building up. And I'm like, man, like we're doing better. Like, I mean, playoff series rodeos, and so like it's getting better, but we're still got a rodeo. Like we're behind. We're behind a lot of money. And then we were able to go to Austin, which we won the first round or not, yeah, Austin. And like that was awesome. Like that was a big win right there. And then come back to the second round, and we just had a catch to make it back, and we caught the cow. And a lot of our credit to just catching goes to Jess Tierney. We went to college. I'll chase a rabbit right here if you don't mind. We went to college at Western Oklahoma State in Altus, and we're trying to just throw fast at practices. We're trying to perfect our fast run. And Jess, put a barrel out there in the middle of the arena. He's like, "You don't turn them before this." It's halfway down. He's a steer chipper. Like that guy. That guy's a catcher. He's a winner.
Yeah.
And so we would just catch these cows. We would, he'd walk away from us, and we're like, we want to rope fast. But we have gotten so much better in our catching game. And he'd watched it on the Cowboy Channel, and he called us. He's like, "Yeah, that's that 2 years at Western Oklahoma State." It's like, "You're welcome." I was like, "Well, thank you."
Yeah.
So we were able to catch that cow to advance to the short round, which we didn't do any good right there in the short round. But anyhow, we got some good money out of Austin, and then we're picking things up. We've got 13 or 14,000, and we're pretty excited. Like it's getting better, and we go to San Angelo, in which the times are fast. But I was telling my brother this, just bro talk between him and I. Like I think San Angelo is a fairly easy rodeo. The times are fast, but like that's our run. We have it down pretty good to an extent. And so I felt so comfortable at San Angelo to be, 3.9. I felt like 3.9 just was not, we weren't even that fast, like, cause it was so slow. And, I rode good position and in 4.5, we were 4.5 in our second one. And I felt behind, like the steer stepped off to the left. And I don't know, my horse didn't get there enough time. But I kind of had to make a shot happen and didn't feel good at all. Anyways, we win the first round. And if I were to heel the steer faster, we'd have been 3.9 or something again in the second round, place in the second round. But we got the win over at San Angelo, dude, and it was so awesome. That put us so high up in inside the top 10, and it was really, really awesome. Really changed our whole I guess not didn't change our game plan for the year, but it made it a little bit easier knowing, like, hey, we could have a bad day here or whatever, but we'll keep catching and hopefully keep climbing or stay in the middle of the pack in the conversation.
Yeah, that losing at 4 or 5 rodeos in a row
Yeah,
and just
didn't get a man
understanding like,
down.
hey, when you get 80, 90 teams,
Mhm.
the swings, especially you guys, you're gonna have an aggressive run too. So there's
Yeah.
gonna be times where you're gonna risk it a little bit more, and that's okay because you're gonna get wins like the Jackson, Mississippi win, like a
Right.
3.9,
Yeah.
that pays what, like almost 5 grand.
Yeah, something like
Yeah.
that.
So you're getting huge hits in.
Yeah.
It's just sometimes it will. You gotta have the toughness, kind of the mental toughness to know like the the lows are gonna be there for a while at
Oh, yeah.
times. And winter rodeo is a completely different animal, really, because it's like you rope and then you might every 2 or 3 weeks you might go to a rodeo, really. So it's like if you don't do good at 3 or 4 rodeos, it could be a month or longer that you haven't won anything, and it's
Yeah, so, like, last year, kinda hit on that, it's like you said, it's a different deal. Um, we went to Odessa last year, and no good, like, I missed both of them last year. But I just kinda listened to the conversation between, the top guys or whatever. I don't really remember who it was, but, they're making their runs or they didn't make the run, and they're saying, "Yeah, man, like, rodeoing in January is hard because you haven't made those runs at any rodeos in a few months."
yeah.
And so I was like, "Wow," like, it is, you get sharp, you're sharp all winter, and then the guys that can stay sharp and keep sharp, into January, February, then it's like, yeah, that's pretty dang awesome to be able to, stay sharp like that, and where we were not because, we obviously hadn't been around that much, and, knowing the different things that we do now would be a little bit different then, but, it's rodeo, you learn.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing, right? Is if you continue to learn rodeoing, and that just increases your odds of the wins happening, right?
Yeah.
And to be able to learn and understand like how to be better prepared for certain situations and what it's going to be like, and then to trust it, and it just it helps,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And then I think that's how you go from. I mean, you guys have already dang near won as much this year as you did last year, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and,
Yeah.
you
So
know, our game plan this year was to have, like 25, 30,000 by Reno, and, we're past that now, so, like, you know, we're confident that, if we keep making our run and we don't switch things up, then I think we're gonna make them pay us with, my brother's heading the best that he's ever been, and I'm so confident in him, and I'm confident in how I'm riding and how I'm gonna keep riding, and, as long as, we keep things together, I think it'll be a rewarding year.
So what's the biggest thing going into this summer that you're kind of preparing for? Like, as you're kind of putting the final bells and whistles on everything, what's the biggest thing, either like mentally or for like your roping that you're gonna be trying to like what's gonna be the biggest focus on it?
And so kinda like you said earlier, the high risk, high reward, we have a rundown, and my brother's gonna throw his rope, and I've gotta be there to heel the steer. So, I think our game plan is to, obviously keep that run going. Um, my brother's kinda got a game plan, and I agree with him, is to just try to get whatever we can out of our steer, like, like I said earlier, you gotta have a good steer to win money. And sometimes you'll get by on a bad steer, but most of the time you got to have a good steer, right? And so my brother's deal, and it brought light to, you're not going to do good all the time. But he's like, man, we're just going to catch our cows and catch them for what they're worth. So if that means, 5 flat at a 1 over rodeo or whatever, you have to go 7. But our biggest deal this year is not beating ourselves and to completing the run, and not taking, dumb shots, if you will, and just finishing the run. Let those guys beat us. If we're 7 flat, if we got to be 7 flat, let's be 7 flat. But if we can be 4 5, let's be 4 5, and just try to max our cows out.
Yeah, max the cows out and the situations,
Yes.
knowing what it's gonna take to win that day and being able to use your cattle for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that creates the long term.
Yeah.
That creates the like, hey, we're not just gonna make it one time or get close or whatever. Like, hey, this is how a team I think gets to the next level
Mhm.
is they don't give money away.
Right.
They just take money when they're supposed to get it and then make some runs that are, that they probably weren't supposed to win money on.
Right, yeah.
And that's how I think you really can separate yourselves from the
Well,
field.
kinda like Andrew and Buddy, like, they may not win all the time just because their run isn't, a 4 flat run, but, if they get set up, they're darn sure gonna use it, but very rarely do you see those guys miss, and
Yeah.
they've just got it down so much to where, like, they're gonna catch. I mean, you see them right in the box, like, they're gonna catch, obviously, it's inevitable we're gonna miss, but, I mean, you don't see them right in the box and be like, "Oh, man, like, they're not gonna catch this one," like, they're gonna be, in the money right here.
Great definition of they're a great example of a team that they have their run,
Yep.
they have the pattern they like steers
Yeah.
in, they catch a lot, both, and they really trust it. They don't really get away from it, hardly ever.
Yeah.
It's just like it works all year long to the
Yeah.
NFR, and it goes long to short, and I think that's really unique to see that it pays off really good for
Oh,
them.
for sure, like, the amount of steers that they had to run to get that down, it's kinda like, I feel like, like Junior and Caleb and whatnot, and, like, they've got their run down. They run so many steers, it's kinda like, my brother and I, like, I know where the cow's gonna be. Buddy knows exactly where the cow's gonna be, where to ride and stuff, and, though it's just good chemistry that you've gotta have if you plan on winning.
Right. Man, one last question before we end this. What about like a good breakdown rodeo story? What's been when it just everything kind of goes wrong, rigs breaking
Hmm.
down. You got any of those?
Yeah, also, so this is divine intervention, God is good. God is so good. So we get done over there at Nampa,
Yep.
and it's 11-hour drive to Salinas.
Yeah, 11, 12 hours.
11,
Yep.
12 hours. So we're driving. We got the Johnsons. We're on our truck and trailer, and this is like just first thing that comes to mind. It's we're going over there. Where I think we limp it over to Salinas with a bad tire, and we had just bought these tires in Casper, and I'm like, man, what the heck is wrong? But it's out there. It's 110 degrees or whatever. We get to Salinas. Well, let's try to limp it out, after the rodeo's over. And we're driving. We get, I don't know, a couple hours out of Salinas. Like, we're in Nevada now. And we have a blowout. And man, like, change the tire. We go another couple hours. We had another blowout. Like, man, just on top of each other. And this is a Sunday afternoon. And I forget what town we were driving to, but like, man, what's going to be open? It's Sunday. It's past 5 o'clock. We get to this town. We call this tire shop 24-hour tire shop. Like, literally 5 miles where we had our last blowout. And we just limp it in there. And these guys, I mean, they're Hispanic and they don't speak the best English. And like, it was kind of a jankety spot. Like, I mean, just kind of a hole in the wall. They wouldn't let you go inside. I don't know. They might have lived in there. But anyways, they were open.
Right.
And they had 2 tires that fit those rims, like the exact same tire. Like, what on earth? You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's just God, like, we'd have been stranded there. We had to get to, I think we went Spanish Fork after that.
Yeah, probably go straight to
We
Spanish
went
and then to Cheyenne, I believe.
Yeah, we went straight, we were headed straight to Spanish. And, we would have made our run, like, we were down, we couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah, 3
So,
tires.
yeah,
3 tires
man,
and up Monday.
like, we had blowouts, and then the tire shop was 5 miles from there. Man, it was awesome, but, I mean, God takes care of us, he does a pretty good job, he knows what he's doing.
How do you look at that when everything's kinda, I mean, the rig's breaking down, and then you get, like, a really nice, like, "Hey, this is a good break right here," this is
Right.
about to be bad.
Right, although, $800 later, but I mean, we
Yeah.
could have been a lot worse. But I try to be optimistic in everything. You know, even like I said earlier, when things are good, you can still be pessimistic. So whatever is going bad, I try not to bring that into light. I try to, like, man, we have a nice truck, like we have nice horses. The trailer's good, like we're getting there, we're safe. And so I just try not to bring myself down because, like, no matter what, like in anything, every day of your life, you can bring yourself down. You can look at all the bad, but I mean, what does that do for you? Like, what does that do for your mental health? Like,
Yeah.
are you gonna if you're that guy, like, are you gonna be somebody like the next guy wants to be around? I mean, who likes negative people?
Well, and two, what about like the spiritual side of it? I don't know if I mean you brought God up in like a few God things. Is that kind of like, all right, we're going the right way in this journey? You know what I mean? Like we're going through trials, but we're also getting help. Like, does it kind of help like know like, hey, I'm going the right way, or does it do anything that way?
Absolutely. So, we've grown up in church. We're non-denominational, and always have had a relationship with God. And I've never been a big drinker. Don't hardly ever cut loose or anything like that. And I go to the college rodeos, and I stay in. I rope the dummy, or whatever. Everybody goes to the bar, and I just don't think anything really good comes from um, drinking and stuff. And with your walk with God, like drinking stuff up, it's not terrible, like, I mean, I don't have anything against, drinking, whatever, but I feel like it dilutes your walk with the Lord, and, since August, I've really August, September-ish, I've really just kinda pursued the Lord a whole bunch, and it's man, obviously, going to church and, and having a walk with God and seeing the seeds, we're reaping what we're sowing, I believe, being a testament, being a witness for the Lord, and man, it's just been awesome to see what God is doing and opening doors and whatnot for us.
Yeah, especially with the rodeoing lifestyle,
Yeah,
because there's a lot of trials. It's hard. I mean,
absolutely.
and I think it does. It helps build a lot of character, helps build faith,
Yeah, and I think
just
that's where a lot of my mindset comes from, being humble. Like Jesus, man, he was humble. Like, whenever they were telling him, turn this rock into bread, like, no, I don't need to show you, I don't need to prove anything to you, like he's just a humble man. And if I could, and another thing, like I'm this way, I want people to see Jesus in me, like I want to have people see me in a different light rather than the next guy or the next guy, which is nothing wrong with those guys or whatever, but I just want to be different, not in the arena, but like outside of the arena, how I carry myself, and I just want people to see that.
yeah. Man, I appreciate it. I think that's really cool. Like what you guys are doing. I think it's pretty awesome to watch a couple brothers go at it, and I think that's to see what you guys are doing is it's great, man. I really appreciate it.
Well,
So
I sure appreciate it. I appreciate you having us on.
yeah, man. Well, good luck this summer, and like I said, it was fun.
Absolutely, thank you.